Hello all, James here. Now, I did a really crappy video this past Friday, reacting to the WWE WrestleMania 43 basically selling out to Saudi Arabia deal. While the press conference was actually still going on, I basically just went into the camera for about 3 minutes while I was stood in a friend's garden. So it really wasn't a very good video. Amusingly, about 40,000 people watched it. But that's not the point. So I wanted to do something rather more in-depth, quite frankly. I'm about an hour away from recording with Dutch, and we're going to be talking about it probably more on the Stevie show as well. So basically getting everybody's opinion on whether this matters really, if it's a big deal, if people are throwing their toys out the pram needlessly, or, you know, if the upheaval and uproar is warranted. So let's just go straight to the press conference. So first things first, this was recorded in front of absolutely no live audience whatsoever, which is incredibly telling because it sort of bears out what they know the fan reaction is going to be, and the fans know what the fan reaction is going to be, and the live chat feed was a stream of the exact same three words. When I clicked on it, there was nothing it said other than "you sold out, you sold out, you sold out, you sold out," until WWE, the YouTube channel, disabled the live chat. So on the comments, when they, not the live thing, they actually, you know, uploaded a video like a regular YouTube channel with normal comments, every single one of them searingly negative. You know, apart from the pricing out of everybody, apart from holding it in a country with, you know, horrible human rights violations and abuses, and, you know, they're just spending money to, the old word is sports wash their way into relevancy, I guess, in the Western world, is holding pretty true. But let's go to the press conference straight away. Joe Tessitore, he welcomes The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Liv Morgan, Stephanie Fakir, Logan Paul, Seth Rollins. They all stand there, apart from Liv Morgan, in fairness, who had a bit of a smile. Everyone else there looked like they were standing, waiting for their turn in the firing line. They didn't seem happy to be there. I'm surprised Logan Paul was there, quite frankly, because, I mean, he's making more than probably everybody else on that stage. Maybe even Triple H, for all I know, because he's signed to at least $5 million a year. And they didn't even have him speak, but maybe that was a good thing, with some of the things he says. Anyway, Triple H then takes to the podium. Triple H, you know, self-flagellates, and, you know, WWE as well. Triple H then announces a dear friend, quotes, His Excellency, Turk al-Sheikh. Now, they spell it differently to how I saw it on the internet. So, the little name badge tack, the lower third, comes up Turkey al-Sheikh, right? But then, if you Google it, it's al-Sheikh. So, I'll just say al-Sheikh. He is changing the face of sports and entertainment, apparently. I mean, kind of in a way he is. We'll get into that in a minute. But purely through outrageously overpaying sports franchises to work with them. Now they've tried to compete with the Premier League over here. They're bringing over Tom Brady and apparently a bunch of other NFL greats for a flag football thing. That was announced, I think, yesterday, as I record this. They're also doing the same with, you know, Live Golf, Formula One tennis. That's not to mention UFC, part of TKO, of course, and boxing as well. Saudi Arabia just hosted the Canelo versus Crawford boxing match, and there was controversy there as well because they were barring, supposedly, any journalists who were at any point critical of the Saudi regime or TKO themselves. So once again, they're just trying to create this critique-free echo chamber for themselves. UFC has tried to do that before, most notably with Ariel Helwani. His Excellency, Turkey al-Sheikh, or Sheikh, actually has a prison wing named after him, if you didn't know. It's called the Tutu Wing. That is his nickname. Say that it's named after him, but that's what the guards and prisoners actually call it. It hosts political prisoners who have sent critical messages or tweets regarding His Excellency Turkey al-Sheikh. So if you think there's no harm in WWE heading over to Saudi Arabia and all that kind of thing, giving them WrestleMania for a huge amount of money that I'll tell you about in a second as well, they are taking their money and in return legitimizing a semi-totalitarian state where censorship, a crackdown on freedom of expression, and a government-sponsored surveillance, harassment and punishment of their own citizens at home and abroad are widespread. If you think that's not the case, then you're sorely mistaken. Apparently, they will actually keep tabs on Saudi citizens who are not in the country and what they're posting about. There was a website, I can't remember if this was an Associated Press article that had collated some of these sort of arrests when, citizens return back to Saudi Arabia. Somebody got 30 years for a phone call they had with somebody. So just to give you an example of basically who WWE are in bed with here. Let's also not forget the, horrendous human rights violations. Once again, I know I said this in the video last week. It bears repeating. I think this gets lost in the source of all this, including arrest and detainment for any number of reasons or no reason whatsoever, and multi-decade or even death sentences without proper due process or a fair trial. This includes youth offenders as well as just protesters, mostly by beheading if you're going to be sentenced to death. Anyway, confessions are usually obtained through torture and sentences passed immediately after. Say usually, can be anyway. Treason, blasphemy, apostasy, burglary if aggravated, sorcery and witchcraft, and, quote here, waging war on God. They're all crimes punishable by death in Saudi Arabia, whatever some of those mean. I think somebody was had a talisman, which is almost like said to be like a mystical kind of necklace thing, right? And he was tried and found guilty of sorcery and witchcraft, and I guess sentenced to death. And the whole women are second-class citizens thing, if a woman is SA'd, I won't say the full thing, but you know what I mean, the woman will be punished for having sex out of wedlock. And that's not just exclusive to Saudi Arabia. That is in Sharia law around quite a few countries. And it's illegal to be gay, of course, or not believe in whatever God they believe in and whatnot. Also, if somebody is convicted of murder, and I found this very interesting, there is an option for the murderer to pay off the victim's family. And if the family accepts the blood money, and it's called blood money, his life can be spared, or he can even be forgiven. I say he or she as the murderer. Anyway, Turkey sits down. We're back to the press conference now. Undertaker sits next to him because, as Joe Tessitore says, Turkey likes that. Now, Undertaker has been part of a trophy presentation before some Riyadh season football exhibition featuring Cristiano Ronaldo, because some of the video was Ronaldo just like going, geez, this is amazing. Kind of, they did the whole Undertaker entrance to present this trophy. Plus, he's been spotted over in Saudi Arabia with Vince McMahon, post-scandals as well, so he's not above taking Saudi money to put over the country, basically. Now, he talks about how the Saudi fans are super passionate, all the while ignoring that the Saudi shows generally suck as far as atmosphere goes and sort of, I guess, booking as well, because they're mostly just kind of really weird house shows. Like we used to get, your insurrections and whatnot, all the while looking as bored as humanly possible or stuttering over his words. And then also saying, people will be so surprised. And Triple H said the same thing. The fans in Saudi Arabia, they make this noise that's comparable to the great fans in the UK or France. What a pile of bollocks. What a pile of bullshit. Once again, the last show, Night Champions, the fans actually turned up like for the first time in 7 years, pretty much. But for the most part, if you are comparing the Saudi fans to, long-term fans in the UK or France or Germany, who, keep in mind, us as a nation, as well as a few other European nations as well, we propped up the World Wrestling Federation in the 1990s when they were dying on their arse domestically, and there was even talk about I think TNA actually did this as well, but I don't know. In fact, I might be getting confused there. TNA actually thought about moving operations to the UK. I don't know if the WWF did, but they certainly were coming over here 2-3 times a year for like month-long tours to basically bolster their bank accounts while the business was doing absolutely terribly in the domestic markets. Anyway, I don't want to get that completely wrong, but I might have been confusing that with TNA. Now, the old argument was that European shows would hurt American pay-per-view buys because of the early starts, which is true if you are before 2014. Since 2014, with the advent of the WWE Network, that has never been a concern anymore. But for whatever reason, at WrestleMania or even a SummerSlam, and I'll never know why SummerSlam was never in Wembley Stadium after 2014, because apart from the fact that even American fans, I'm sure, were clamouring for that kind of spectacular, almost as a thank you for, the still arguably the greatest SummerSlam of all time, 1992. I mean, you can't think of a better place to have it. Anyway, once again, I mean, you're saying all these great things about Saudi Arabia while pocketing an enormous amount of money, when John Cena did a promo in the UK not too long ago saying how the England, the UK deserves a WrestleMania, and the people in the back, they hear you. Boy, do they hear you. Boy, do they ignore you as well, because I was going to say Sadiq Khan. I can't remember the mayor's name in London at the moment. I've drawn a blank. Anyway, he even had Nick Khan and Triple H over for a photo op to try and get WrestleMania over to London. Guess what? He didn't want to pay enough, apparently. Now, once again, The Undertaker is stumbling over his words. Pleasantly surprised was the quote he said, which is kind of what I hope for in a WrestleMania. I expect the worst and then hope to be pleasantly surprised. The problem is the thing, it's not with the Saudi Arabian fans here. No one's having a problem with the Saudi Arabian fans, I don't think. It's the Saudi Arabian government, how they go about things, and the ruling classes. And also that they're bypassing the States and Canada and Western Europe and all these great places where WrestleMania could be, all for that bottom line dollar. It is a complete sellout. Fans are chanting, "You sold out." People writing, "You sold out." And they're absolutely right. I mean, I'm sure they've sold out a million times beforehand, but this is about the most glaring of the examples. And once again, we know that Vince McMahon originally signed that deal with Saudi Arabia for $50 million a show. I mean, I guess you can afford to, not have morals at that point. But there you go. So many other sports franchises don't have morals either, apparently. Anyway, Bianca Belair then talks about how, and this is incredible, amazing how it was part to be the Saudi show. It's fair enough, apparently, Saudi Arabia. Famous for being governed under Sharia law, is an amazing place for women. I mean, especially because they have to wear these like full-body burkini kind of things to wrestle in front of the fans, lest the fans lose their minds at the sight of bare shoulders. Once again, Bianca Belair saying this is apparently progress and WWE makes history wherever they go. And of course, WWE are trying to spin this as a wondrous event and that WWE are doing this to make change in the Middle East, which of course is not the case. It's a money-making exercise. There's also been a photo I've seen a few times with the same caption passed around with some WWE girls in bikinis with captions like, "Here's women being repressed in Saudi Arabia," and basically, they're holding up drinks, whatever they might be, and in bikinis, of course. Now, that's quite obviously either complete morons reposting this or more likely a sort of propaganda campaign for social media, because it doesn't give the full picture that women have to dress very modestly in public in Saudi Arabia, aside from a couple of designated safe spaces like resorts. They're like the only places that are exempt from those laws. Anyway, Triple H says this all doesn't happen without His Excellency, without Nick Khan, but especially without the Saudi Arabian fans. Well, apparently fan power means absolutely nothing, because if fan power meant anything, then it'd be in London, WrestleMania 43. But there you go. UK and European and American and Canadian fans, for the most part, are all more loud and more dedicated, especially because nothing else. We've had WWE programming for many more decades. Anyway, trying to put the Saudi fans on par with us is, once again, just ridiculous, as far as, fan passion and fan noise, if you want to say. But it's a total insult. Anyway, His Excellency, then Turki al-Sheikh, or Sheikh, then talks about being the Minister of Sport for the Saudis back in 2018 and meeting with Vince McMahon and Triple H and how they won them over. I'm sure bowled over by his charisma. At no point is money mentioned, by the way. Not bowled over by the fact that, it's going to be 100 million for 2 shows a year. Turkey actually then brings up that somebody in his office accidentally tweeted out the news prematurely that WrestleMania 43 was going to be in Riyadh for the end of Riyadh season in 2027, and that the people go crazy and they do not believe it, which is a quote from Turkey, but now it is true. So basically, I don't know if he sort of just brushed over the fact that whoever posted that tweet and then had to take it down immediately. No word on if he was arrested or not, who knows. I'm sure you'll remember the event, the initial event actually, the Greatest Royal Rumble. Titus O'Neil fell over, and then, they were bringing in the Ultimate Warrior who'd already died, and Yokozuna who'd already died, but they are trying to bring in, so I understand anyway, every name conceivable who is a WWE legend, like, Steve Austin or The Rock or whoever it might be. Maybe even people who are currently with AEW, but, their deals may come up. They might winch in Ric Flair and, have him wrestle like a marionette puppet. Who knows? But basically, for a select few of WWE legends, they will overpay to get all those names, which is interesting for the current crop of WWE wrestlers, because I imagine if it's going to be a 2-day event once again and they have like 7 matches maybe per night, well, it sounds like about 5 of those matches are going to be Legends matches. So, I mean, look out for like 4 battle royals to get all the names there and a bit of a payday, I suppose. Here's the thing. Apparently, what have I gone for? Yeah, so here's the thing. Name me a load of people who can't wait to go to Saudi Arabia, because, once again, it's a place known for Sharia law and very strict and poor human rights records, and basically people all know it from being an ally of the United States and oil and gun running, basically. I think unless somehow WWE is incredibly popular in Saudi Arabia and we don't realise it, and I think it is to a point. I said before, we've had wrestling for decades longer than them. I still think that's true, but they probably had the TV for a while longer than I'm aware of. WrestleMania 43, it's just looking like it's going to be like one of the lowest attended WrestleManias in decades, because, like, you know, domestic fans or fans like me in the UK or Western Europe or Australia or wherever else it may be are all pretty upset, because I don't know many people who actually want to go to Saudi Arabia. It doesn't sound like the most inviting, welcoming place to go, especially for someone like me who has openly criticised the regime, so therefore I will never go, because if you criticise the Saudi regime and they find out, you'll basically be put in jail for decades. So I'll never go. And they will find it as well. Once again, I think I've used this example, is they found somebody who'd post like a vaguely critical tweet about Saudi regime, like back in 2013, nothing since, and when he got back to Saudi Arabia, he was thrown in prison for decades. That's how it is. So I don't know many people who would want to risk that, quite frankly. No matter how much propaganda and, oh, you know, lovely, look at the sun and look at the desert and all that kind of thing, and look at this lake, you know, that WWE, you know, airs from, you know, the propaganda ministry, or the Ministry of Propaganda. Anyway, it's like, first, the ridiculous ticket prices. Everything's leaving a bad taste in fans' mouths now, because it's all about the bottom line. And, you know, Mark Shapiro, TKO Chief Operating Officer, has blamed Vince McMahon for not wanting to price families out. That's basically what he said. And they are going to be jacking up the price even further. And then there are moves made, and it only benefits WWE, but there are moves made to make WWE even more inaccessible unless you've got the money to get all these streaming services. Now ESPN, now you have to keep Peacock for Saturday night's main event, plus Netflix, plus everything else, plus cable subscription for USA, if you want to watch it legally, of course. And now, once again, they're selling out WrestleMania, or they're selling the rights for WrestleMania, by the way. I'll tell you the number in a second. Where's New Orleans fit in this? It was meant to be next year. Now they took that away and went to Las Vegas for a second year because they paid more, and that TKO executives live there, so it suits them. It probably suits people flying in a bit more as well, but New Orleans was a great place the 2 times I think they went as well. I thought they were 2 of the better WrestleManias as well, if memory serves. I can't remember the main events, but just the general atmosphere certainly was. But here's why WWE are selling the site fees, or Saudi Arabia are buying the site fees for WWE, and they've sold them to him. $350 million for 2 shows. One of them being the Royal Rumble next January 2026, and WrestleMania 43 in 2027. Now, you hear those numbers, and you think, how can TKO, how can WWE, how can your Nick Khan's, your Mark Shapiro's, your Ari Emanuel's and all that kind, how can they ignore money like that? But I would counter with this. 1, you're already on bad footing with fans. Pretty bad footing. 2025 has not been the year 2023 or 2024 was. Not at all. Not creatively speaking, not sort of fan appreciation speaking, if you want to put it that way, I guess. It's been really, since WrestleMania 41, kind of slowed up, and I think it's lost the interest of a lot of wrestling fans. That's my opinion, because I sort of feel that way. I do feel that way. And where am I going? I mean, I doubt that New Orleans paid probably, $10 million in site fees to bring WrestleMania over, I guess. And then Las Vegas obviously bid more, and then Saudi Arabia is going to bid, 10 times more than anywhere else is ever going to bid for that kind of thing. But once again, here's my point. The shares are over $200 per share for TKO. TKO probably spend, I don't know, 12 or 13%, probably even less maybe, because I've seen different estimates, on actually paying the wrestlers themselves. All the rest of that money just goes on operating the business and just making money. And then, who does this really benefit? I mean, here's the real thing. How much more money can TKO have? I mean, they're constantly willing to burn their own credibility with their own fans as far as this constant selling out, this with the Saudi Arabians constantly jacking up ticket prices, constantly talking about how we've broken gate records, which at first sounds, wow, this is amazing kind of thing, but now the reason why people are putting the correlation together. It's not because they sold more tickets. It's because they sold probably the same amount of tickets, but at just 3 times the price. And fans catch on to that as well. And it just goes, ugh. Well, that just reminded me to not go anymore. I didn't go to WWE. It was in Manchester in August. I didn't go because, for decent tickets, and I'm aware that this is a lot cheaper than in the States as well, but the equivalent of tickets I was looking at, it was $250 a seat. They weren't even floor seats. And I just thought, I'll pay for me, I'll pay for, we'll make it a business trip kind of thing. But I'm not paying that. It's too much. I mean, look, what did I pay? I paid, I think, the same to go see Stevie Wonder, in June or July, whenever it was. That's kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and pretty amazing, really, considering he doesn't tour anymore, practically. That, for me, was worth it as a one-off. WWE turning up for a house show at that price isn't worth it for me. I know it'll be different for other people, and I'm sure they still sold a lot of tickets as well. But, that's the way I feel about just the sort of money grubbingness of it all. And I'm just thinking the corporate greed, I think it'll come crashing down on TKO and WWE by 2027. I think the Saudi Arabian WrestleMania 43, I think that will be the sort of pinnacle of when people will start wising up and just getting sick of this and just thinking, man, whether you thought it or not beforehand, did WWE ever care about its fans? A lot of people say no. Some people would say yes, I'm sure. But now I just feel that TKO doesn't. Or there's no misconstruing that maybe they do, or they do any fan service whatsoever, which sort of leads me to believe, once again, that TKO are gearing up for a sale, and I wasn't convinced at first. But all they're trying to do is getting as much money as possible. They're seeing that fans, for the moment, are still paying these exorbitant ticket prices, and they're still getting these record deals from ESPN. But I think in a couple of years, they're going to find that it's just too expensive for the average Joe to continue being a fan, with all these different live stream, I want to say conscriptions, but whatever it is, subscriptions, that's the word I was looking for, and everything else. And people just give up in the end, and they'll just see this for what it is, just corporate greed and corporately run, and fans are customers only, and there's no sort of give back, basically. AAA, when worlds collide in Las Vegas, the crowd, when the announcement that the WrestleMania 43 show was going to be in Saudi Arabia, they all booed at the screen, and then they chanted, "You sold out." And I think to sort of end this stream of effluvia coming out of my mouth at this point is that it feels that WWE and TKO are now completely bypassing the will of the fans. What if 10 years ago, with the Yes movement kind of thing, the fans forced WWE's hand on that. The fans forced WWE's hand on Cody Rhodes and The Rock a couple of years ago, or last year, I should say. I think I'm right in saying that. Or the year, these years run into me now. But I'm wondering if that would happen anymore, or if TKO are just in the mode of just bludgeoning fans and just giving them what they want. I don't know. I'm feeling very let down by the whole thing anyway. But here's something else. There's an unintended consequence here, is that the Las Vegas hoteliers are now jacking up the price for WrestleMania weekend 2026, WrestleMania 42, because they figure that nobody will want to go to Saudi Arabia, so therefore this will be the last chance for anybody to go to WrestleMania for now 2 years. So hotels are now getting more expensive. I don't know if restaurants would jack up the price there for a couple of days for the tourists coming in, but it's entirely possible. So now it's going to be bleeding the fans even more dry. And here's something else. All the indies that build their biggest shows of the year around WrestleMania weekend and around WrestleMania season, and just have all these ancillary shows going on. Some of these indies, it's make or break for them, doing this and hopefully getting a good house kind of thing, so they can operate for another year, or at least it's the biggest money-making weekend of their year. And conventions as well, they're guaranteed, like WrestleCon, that'll be their biggest money-making venture of the entire year. So the year after, they've got nothing. They'll just have to pick a random city, I guess, and have it coincide. They might just go back to Vegas for all I know. Here's another thing as well. Should AEW run against WrestleMania in the United States? Now, I've heard this said a few times over the past couple of days, because WWE are, aggressively counter-programming AEW pay-per-views and programming at the moment. Should AEW do the same back? I think WrestleMania, they shouldn't. Tony Khan, I think, would be a fool to do that against WrestleMania, because WrestleMania is kind of like the outlier. WrestleMania is the thing that, even once a year, every fan will tune in to watch, even if they are lapsed fans of 20 so years or even more, who knows. They will tune into WrestleMania just to say they watched it. Should they counter-program with the Royal Rumble, considering it's in Saudi Arabia? I don't know that either, because the Royal Rumble's the other show of the year that everyone will tune in on, because everyone loves the Royal Rumble. It's always been my favourite the entire year as well. But if they were going to do it, if Tony Khan was going to counter-programming AEW stuff with WWE, I'd consider the Royal Rumble over WrestleMania. Once again, to end this entire video, will TKO sell to Saudi Arabia? I kind of feel like this is what it's gearing towards: make as much money as possible, make the company value as high as possible, and then sell. Because the Saudi Arabians, whatever that company's valued at, and that'll include UFC. So if it's valued at 40 billion or whatever it is, or whatever, I've heard so many different valuations, who knows. Get it up as high as possible, sell it, then it's not their problem anymore. It was a short-term stop to make a bunch of money, a bunch of executives, and a few lucky shareholders will make a huge amount of money, and everybody else will be wondering what happened to the sport I love. That'll be probably their final thought. So that's my final thought as well. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought about all these. They basically all look like cadavers at the press conference, all stood there, no, apart from Liv Morgan, who put in the effort, just stood there going. Charlotte Flair looked very unhappy. Logan Paul looked there, I guess. And there were a few. Seth Rollins looked pissed off. Didn't seem like many people were happy with that announcement, and they knew no one would be happy with the announcement. That's why they didn't invite fans or press to this press conference. Right, I'll see you again for the next video.